Hope you are doing well. Today, horror incident about unseen entity or demon. This is the story of Antonio from Dakota. He narrates that when he was almost 11 years old, he used to play with an Afghani child named Amir. Amir was from an Afghan refugee family, and they lived in a tent on an unoccupied plot of land near Antonio's house. Antonio and Amir became fast friends despite their different backgrounds. They would spend their afternoons playing games, sharing stories, and exploring the neighborhood. Antonio learned a lot about Afghanistan from Amir, who told him about his homeland, the mountains, the traditions, and the hardships his family had faced. One day, Antonio went to play with Amir as usual, but when he arrived at the tent, he saw a crowd of people gathered around, talking in hushed voices. Antonio's heart began to race. He pushed through the crowd, looking for his friend. Finally, he saw Amir's mother, her face pale and eyes red from crying. Antonio asked her, "Where is Amir?" She looked at him with sorrowful eyes and said, "Amir died yesterday." Antonio was shocked. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Just the day before, they had been playing together, laughing and having fun. He asked Amir's mother what had happened. Through her tears, she told him the story. Last night, Amir went out to urinate. When he came back, he was horrified and in very bad condition. We asked him what was the matter. Amir's mother paused, trying to hold back her tears. He said he saw a little puppy while he was coming back. The puppy came running after him. Amir got scared and started to run. But the puppy started to grow bigger in size. It grew and grew until it became a human in front of his eyes. Antonio couldn't believe what he was hearing. He asked, "What happened then?" Amir told us this and then fell unconscious. We tried to wake him, but he was gone. We found him dead after a while. Amir's mother said, breaking down into sobs. Antonio stood there stunned. He couldn't understand how this could have happened. He went back home, his mind swirling with questions and grief. He told his family what he had learned. They were also shocked and saddened by the news. Days passed, but Antonio couldn't stop thinking about Amir. He missed his friend terribly and felt a deep sense of loss. He often went to the unoccupied plot where Amir's family lived, hoping to find some solace. One evening, Antonio sat on the ground where he and Amir used to play. He thought about the strange story Amir's mother had told him. It sounded like something out of a fairy tale or a nightmare, but it had happened to Amir, and that made it all too real. Antonio decided to talk to some of the other refugees in the area. He wanted to know if they had heard of anything like this before. He went from tent to tent asking questions and listening to their stories. An elderly man, who had been living in the camp for a long time, told Antonio, "There are old stories from our homeland about creatures that can change their shape. They are called jinn. Some say they can take the form of animals or humans." Antonio had never heard of jinn before. He asked the old man to tell him more. The man continued, "Jinn are said to live in a parallel world to ours. They can see us, but we can't see them unless they want us to. Sometimes they come into our world and take on different forms. Some people believe they can be both good and evil." Antonio listened intently. He wondered if what Amir had seen was a jinn. It seemed like a possibility, but it was hard to know for sure. He thanked the old man and went home, deep in thought. As time went on, Antonio tried to move on from the tragedy. He continued to play and go to school, but he never forgot Amir. He kept a small token that Amir had given him, a carved wooden toy, as a reminder of their friendship. One night, Antonio had a dream. In the dream, he was back at the unoccupied plot, playing with Amir. They were laughing and running around, just like they used to. Suddenly, a small puppy appeared. Antonio felt a chill run down his spine as he remembered Amir's story. The puppy started to grow bigger, just as Amir had described. Antonio wanted to run, but he couldn't move. The puppy grew and grew until it became a tall man with piercing eyes. The man looked at Antonio and said, "Do not be afraid. I am a guardian of this land." Antonio woke up in a cold sweat. He couldn't shake the feeling that the dream was more than just a dream. He decided to visit the plot again the next day. When he arrived, he found Aimee family packing up their belongings. They were moving to a different refugee camp. Antonio felt a pang of sadness but understood that they needed to move on. Aimee's mother saw Antonio and came over to him. She handed him a small pouch. "This was Aimee's. He wanted you to have it," she said with a sad smile. Antonio took the pouch and opened it. Inside was a small, intricately carved stone. He didn't know what it was, but it felt important. "Thank you," Antonio said. "I will never forget Amir." Amir's mother nodded and said, "Neither will we." As Amir's family left, Antonio stood there holding the stone. He felt a sense of peace wash over him. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew that Amir would always be with him in spirit. Years passed, and Antonio grew up. He never forgot the events of that summer or his friend Amir. He kept the stone and the wooden toy in a special place, always remembering the lessons he had learned. Antonio often wondered about the mysterious events that led to Amir's death. He researched jinn and other folklore, trying to make sense of what had happened. Though he never found a definitive answer, he came to believe that some things were beyond human understanding. It's my advice, if you ever visit, remember to be careful around the river and the forest. For the spirits that are hungry for fear, always inquire about the house before moving. Keep yourself and others safe from any type of scary activity. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.